So I actually recently rewatched it.
Maybe 2 years ago, I caught it on TNT.
I haven't seen it in a really long time. I probably should have rewatched or something.
Frodo, I guess he's the most relatable character because he's really being brought into it, doesn't really understand what's going on, but still like wants to do the right thing.
I would say probably Gandalf. He was always such like a support for others. He was like always showing up when other people needed him, coming through on the part of Frodo and the other people in the party to like make sure they're safe. And plus he's got the cool staff and the magic that helps too.
I would say this time Sam. I love him so much. He's so wonderful. Ooh, absolutely yes. I think it's super relevant now in the times we're in now.
I think so. I think it holds up pretty well. So when it first came out, it was like I remember just being like so excited because of all the there's so much action, so much battle scenes, and now it's almost like okay, there's enough battle, just enough, and then the rest of the stuff, the plot development, the speed of the rest of the movie seems to move along well.
It's just kind of big good versus evil, weak versus strength. Really, everyone working together is really the only beneficial way to do anything. Like just overcoming our differences and getting over our past prejudices and like realizing what someone can bring to whatever we need to do.
There's certainly not like a very diverse cast, which I feel like there was a real opportunity there to do that because it's a fantasy world. But in terms of the metaphorical dealings of all the different races, you know, the Fellowship of the Ring seems to be very symbolic because all these different races are uniting for this one cause.
It has the same relationship maybe that race has in our world, where there is in fantasy settings, there is like xenophobia. It's like hundreds of years of hatred between two races. That's something that's so cool about fantasy writing, is that you have so much freedom. You really get to create how those social issues exist in your world. You can create a really realistic, maybe separate from our world, but you can really create a realistic world with real social issues that you can understand. And I feel like Tolkien totally does that. I felt like Lord of the Rings was really empowering when I was a little kid, you know, like everyone wants to be Arwen.
Or you really only see like, except for the elves, like every one of them seemed to go for patriarchy. I guess you could apply that just because that's the time it was written, like who it was written by, and that's just the way people in England saw it.
I have a lot to say about that. I remember seeing it the whole time. I was like, "Where are all the women?" It's a lost opportunity, and it's all about men and male power. In the whole story, it just seemed women were minor.
You have all these powerful men in the movie who all spend all this time arguing, and like, you know, and there is a lot of that in the movie where they're all arguing about what to do and what they're gonna, I don't know, there's a lot of leadership among the men, or the males of the movie, I guess you would say, right? But with the women, they're so confident. They don't answer to anyone necessarily. The only person Arwen answers to is her father, and he still respects her and her life, you know, but he just loves her. And I think that that's something that's really cool.
I don't know what he was really trying to say with the elves, other than he just saw them as being completely different and alien to us. There's definitely a lot that could be explored there.
It says a lot about politics.
That you really have to be careful about who you put in charge.
I liked that the ring as a plot device to be representation of power corrupting also was really cool to me because I was like, well, yeah, like people turn into monsters, and that's what happens. The more power you give someone who has bad motives to begin with, it only gets worse.
You can really see how some people who maybe aren't equipped to be a good leader or don't know how to responsibly handle a role of leadership turn into a completely different human being.
Really, the only leader that seems sort of trustworthy is Aragorn. He just shows respect to everyone throughout the series. I know he didn't want to be king at first just because he didn't trust himself. He kind of treated it just like as a job he had to get.
Power really does change some people. Maybe something about your personality maybe isn't strong enough to be able to know how to deal with that power. And I think that that's like something that happens a lot in politics. When you're a leader, you have enough power to do wrong, and you should be able to resist that temptation. It's more than just being a good person.
classic adventure, just good versus evil. People probably still be reading it and watching some version of the movie like 100 years from now. Just because like really humans probably don't change on that fundamental level.
I think the political allegory is strong. Also being in a time full of strife and adversity with the pandemic.
I feel like there's so much to be learned about Fellowship of the Ring and the whole trilogy, you know, because there's so much hard work that goes into that film that like when you want to talk about like every frame a painting, that's a film that every frame is a painting, every single part of it. The color correction is incredible. I think that there are a lot of creators that really could watch that movie. There's so much to learn about storytelling through cinematography, storytelling through color grading. There's so much to learn about prop making and so much to learn about acting and really like delivering like an incredible emotional performance from those actors. Everyone that's involved in the film industry should look at that movie again. You can definitely tell that a bunch of individuals who are really talented in their field came together and made that film.
Just the notions and ideas will always be with us. It's been with us since we have civilizations. It's probably going to stick with us for a while.